Welcome to Module 8, Returning from Leave. When we started this journey together, we wanted to ensure that you had a smooth and effortless transition out on your maternity leave. Well, now has come the time to ensure that you have a smooth and effortless transition back into the work environment. So in Module 8, we're going to go over 8 key things that you need to think about as you are transitioning back to work. So let's go ahead and get started here. Our first thing that we want to discuss is the fact that it can be very stressful trying to figure out childcare. So if you can remember back in an earlier module when we created your maternity leave plan, you already have found childcare. And so you have vetted your childcare provider, you found out their policies and their procedures for how they operate. You have determined if their hours of operation and those things are going to work with your schedule. So you have already done that. You have that covered, but we haven't tried it yet. What we want to do is test this out. So get up, get ready like you're going to work, do all of your normal routine that you would do, get your baby ready, and then go and drop your baby off to your childcare provider so that you know, what does your morning look like now? How much time does it take you? Does it allow you enough time to commute to work to be there on time? There is nothing worse for you than getting up, getting ready, taking your baby to childcare, having your commute, and being worried about being late to work on your first day back. So if we test this out a couple of times before you actually return to work, it can help you with some of the anxiety and the stress that can happen about just that first day. I know that when you drop your baby off for the first time to a childcare provider, that is very overwhelming. There's a lot of emotion with that. And so if we test this out, then we see how this is going to feel when we actually start our actual work. Doesn't mean you have to leave your baby there all day, but at least so that you're actually testing this out and getting a feel for how this impacts your routine every day. The second thing is that we need to reach out to our manager or our supervisor and schedule a call with them a week before we actually have to come back to work. Now, if you can remember from earlier modules, we talked about reaching out to human resources so you can let them know that your return to work date is still the same. You also want to schedule that call with your manager. Now, in the call with your manager or your supervisor, you're going to be real upfront and honest with them. You have a new routine and you're trying to figure it out. You know, if there's any type of change you might need with your schedule, you want to be upfront with them about it now. You want to let them know that. So if you all need to make any tweaks, that you have time to do that before the first day. Put the fact that you may be a little apprehensive about coming back to work because you've been gone for a while. You know, if you've been on your leave 12 weeks or more, that's a long time. And so, you know, in coming back to work, we want this to be as easy as we can for you. So put those things out on the table with your manager or your supervisor, because it's important for you to have an easy transition back in and be set up for success. You also want to give your manager or your supervisor any expectations. Set the expectations with them on this call. You have a new normal. You are trying to figure it out. You're adding in coming back to work. You have to have time to get back to where you were before you went for leave. And so putting that out there is setting an expectation for yourself and your manager that this is going to take some time. There's got to be some patience in this for both sides. Now, once you've talked to your manager and you've set those expectations, I want you to think about the fact that when you do actually return into the work environment, setting those same expectations with any colleagues or any clients that you've had while you've been away. You know, set expectations for them to just be patient with you. You're, trying to get acclimated back into the work environment. You're trying to get up to speed on any type of work that was transitioned over to you, and so you're trying to figure this out. Extend yourself grace and ask them to extend you some grace while you get back up to speed. Now, oftentimes the hardest part of this is that we set unrealistic expectations for ourselves. And so putting that much pressure on ourselves can make this process even more overwhelming. And we don't want that. So if we just put our cards out there on the table for everybody that this is going to be a time that we just need to be patient with each other, let yourself get acclimated back into the work environment. You have the emotions of, leaving your baby and your new routine. And so it might even require for you to give yourself an emotional scale check. And there's nothing wrong with that. This is your new normal. You just dropped your baby off at childcare. And so just give yourself some grace and then just ask your manager, supervisor, clients, all of those colleagues to do the same for you as well. When we think about the return to work logistically, there's a best day that you should choose to come back into the work environment, and that day is Thursday. Now, the reason that I say this is because we know that Mondays can often be so chaotic. There can be a lot of meetings, there could be events that happens over the weekend, and when we're just getting our feet back into the work environment, it's really, really difficult to come back to work on a day like that. We want to make sure that this is a smooth transition for you. So if we come in on a Thursday, then we can always, do our work, get acclimated, try our best for the next couple of days to kind of have meetings to get us back up to speed on maybe any policy changes, any team changes, any departmental changes, has any processes or procedures changed while you've been out. And then you have the weekend to kind of get yourself back together, do any organization that you need to do at home, or, thinking through some things to approach for the next work week. So you always want to do that on a Thursday. Absolutely do not try to come back into the work environment earlier in the week, but give yourself that slow, transition back in. We've probably decided that we want to come back on a part-time basis. Hopefully we have decided that until we can get ourselves to full-time. And so what I mean by that is choosing a ramp up a couple of weeks before you come back to your employment full-time, or if you're a part-time employee as well, do a ramp up period. If you're going to be full-time, then you might, 2 weeks out, come back to work at 20 hours for the first week. That gives you the opportunity to test your plan that you have for childcare, but also so you're slowly acclimating into the work environment and you're having those meetings to get back up to speed, but you're not feeling overwhelmed because you're not back at your 40 yet, and you're kind of getting your toes a little bit dipped in the water. And then the next week, go to 30 hours. And then in that 30 hours, you're now taking on another 10 hours per week, but you're slowly getting yourself back to where you used to be. And that's going to be very important for you because you've had a lot of change. You need to slowly go back into the work environment so that you can kind of wrap yourself around any new changes and giving yourself the time to think about your professional side and also your personal side. This is when you're going back to work after you've been off for a while and your new routine. You really have to think about all these things, and it can be a challenge. And so we want to make sure that you're not overwhelming yourself by going back full force. Now, if you want to go back to 40 hours, you're welcome to, but it can often be overwhelming. And so you want to just take the time that you need to get back into the work environment. Once you get back into the work environment, there's some things that we need to think about. The first thing is, not only do we set those expectations with our supervisor, but we need to be setting expectations with our colleagues and any clients. You need to, let them know that you're just now back into the work environment. You're trying your best to make sure that you are getting up to speed on things that happened while you were out. Once you do that, you will respond in the best way possible. But you just want to, tell them, I need a little bit of time to figure out more of what was going on while I was out on leave, because hopefully you disconnected from your work environment. And so this is all new stuff to you that's been going on over the past few months while you've been out. And then having the time to schedule a meeting or a few meetings with the person who was taking on your duties while you were out of the office. So you want to make sure that you're also setting expectations with your coworkers and your colleagues, because that's going to be critical for a smooth transition back in and setting yourself up for success and not being overwhelmed by unrealistic expectations. When you're back into the work environment, the next thing that you want to do is you want to find out, if you're a breastfeeding mom, where is the breast pumping locations in your workplace. There is a breastfeeding mother's law that says that your employer has to provide you with two things: the time to pump milk and a private place to do that is not a bathroom. You want to reach out to either your human resources department or your direct manager and find out where are the breast pumping locations in the building that you work in. If you work at a large employer, a university, anything like that, they may have a map of the building that will show you that these are designated spaces that you can go and pump. And so you can get that map and you can do that when you need to. If you are a work from home mom, it's a little bit easier for you because you are working from home, but you want to make sure that you know where those locations are so that you can do that. What often comes up as a question for this is, do I have to be compensated for the time that I am pumping? That depends on your company policies around breaks. At the federal level, there's no law that says that you have to be compensated for the time that you are pumping. What it does say is that if your company provides you with breaks that are paid breaks, then you need to be paid for the time that you are pumping, because that is during your break time. If your employer does not pay for breaks, then your break for pumping milk is not going to be compensated. And so you just want to make sure that you reach out to your company's HR professional, and so that you know what any company policy is around the breaks for pumping and what is your state laws, because they can all be different. As we discussed in the very, very first module, this course is centered on what are the federal laws around some of these things. And so you have to make sure that it's applicable for your specific employer and state, and your human resources department can help you out with that. We found out what our pumping locations are. We have figured out if we're going to be compensated for it or not. And so now it's time for us to just start back to work. Hopefully this transition has been as easy as it could be for you. I am so thankful that you were willing to allow me to help you walk through your journey of planning your maternity leave, thriving while you are out on your maternity leave, and that we have designed this course to ensure that you had a smooth transition back into the work environment. I appreciate your time that you have spent with me, and remember, the beauty of this digital course is there was a lot of information to unpack in this course. Go back, listen to a module if you need to, pause me if you ever need to pause me, but make sure that you get your maternity leave planned out in the most easy way that you can. Use those supplemental documents, and most definitely reach out to your human resources department. They should be able to guide you through everything you need. Thank you again, and congratulations.